Hello and welcome to What Now with Ann and Eric. I'm Anna.
I am Eric. Totally.
Eric and I swapped today. I'm outside, he's inside. I don't think
Yeah,
that
well,
ever happens.
keep everybody on their toes. Keep everybody on their toes.
Yes,
All
exactly.
good.
So, we finished out Isaiah. That was pretty cool.
It was very cool. Very cool. Not that we finished out Isaiah, but I think the way we finished out Isaiah was pretty. I like it. Caught me off guard, but I now remember why I like the second half of it, like that 40 through 66
Yeah,
part
yeah.
of Isaiah.
Yeah, it was kind of like all of last week was distraction, 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 and then we're like redemption, 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 which was cool.
Yeah, and I felt a little bit like you. I'm like, wow, my Jesus verse is, oh yeah, Isaiah 40 through 66 is my Jesus verse. Pretty much the whole thing is
All the chapters.
yeah, it's pretty yeah. We were so excited. We wanted to get into, we thought, wow, how cool would it be to get into the gospel message and the message of Jesus. Well, there you go. Isaiah came through in a clutch with
I felt like it was mocking me almost because I'm like, oh, I just want to be New Testament. And it was like every other chapter was a Jesus reference, and I was like, man, it's like you keep reminding me that we're not there yet.
Well, it was
I felt a little different than you.
Yeah, it was so funny because I mean we're just getting right into it. We're just diving in.
Oh yeah, we are. No preamble.
Yeah, no,
we're reading the Bible chronologically for anybody who's tuning in for the first time. It's good stuff.
And I know Anna deep dove into Second Chronicles and all that. So I know she probably has tons to say about that. But I'm not gonna lie, I was probably most enamored with the Isaiah part of it. So I think we did have some Second Kings and Second Chronicles sprinkled in there.
Yeah, it was like the last day or two, sort of. But
for me with this, it was awesome storytelling. I think I like when things tell a story, and it was so funny because like chapter 41, 43, 44, 45, 48, I kept writing water and rivers, pour out water, rain showers, spring, all this water stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, Jesus, it's all Jesus. I'm like, wow, water and Jesus. I'm like, that's awesome. I remember Jesus talking about water. He also walked on it. So it's like, it was all this build up to Jesus. So I don't know. I was pretty excited about this, especially after our conversation last week about, man, how awesome is it going to be to get into the New Testament and into the ministry of Jesus? And we get a glimpse of that right here through this. So I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah. I honestly was mostly in Isaiah as well. I mean, I felt like the Second Kings and Chronicles were like, more bad kings. Yeah. That was kind of the gist of it. But so I felt like it was a pretty good summary. I put down, we said like there was a Jesus verse like every other chapter. So I think I was mostly just noting Jesus verses. Some pretty cool ones, which I liked, were if you look at Isaiah 42, starting kind of at the beginning of chapter 42. Look at my servant whom I strengthen. He's my chosen one who pleases me. I will have put my spirit upon him. He will bring justice to the nations. And what's cool about this is that the small, like, kind of 3-verse section is actually quoted in the book of Matthew, directly referencing Jesus and saying, like, this was about him. This was fulfilling that scripture. So that was something I noticed a lot more, too, was, like, how much of Isaiah is directly quoted in the New Testament, which is pretty cool, to think about.
Yeah, that's where I think that prophecy of really fulfilling it and really him doing this deep dive and really talking at length about the about kind of what we should be, the servants of God kind of thing, and understanding that there's going to be two sides of it. There's going to be that side of humility, that seed that's planted that's going to spread this message, but there's also going to be this wicked side that's going to turn away from it and not accept that king that we all are waiting for. So I thought that was really cool to just show that, man, how he writes this out. He could be speaking to any town, any nation, any group right now, and I think this kind of spells out where we're living. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Another one, because you were talking about basically the chapters, like all the chapters where Jesus references. I felt like a really strong one was Isaiah 53. So I actually just want to kind of read through part of that. Reading the Bible, this feels right. Who has believed our message? To whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm? My servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. There was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised, and we did not care. Yet it was our weaknesses he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. And we thought his troubles were punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. And it kind of goes on, but he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. Like, it's pretty obviously talking about Jesus. And it lays out, like, I mean, it would be very difficult to read this and be like, oh, that's somebody totally different. But what was cool about this section, yeah. What was cool about this section was I felt like it gave different perspectives that, like, kind of like a deeper look that we don't necessarily always get even when we're reading the Gospels. Like, it has, like, different details in it that I don't personally remember reading in the Gospels. Like the part, like, where it talks about, well, actually, it might talk about him having a plain appearance in the Gospels. I don't remember that. We're not there yet, so can't really say. But, like, we thought his troubles were punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. And I'm sure a lot of the people did think that, like, if you look at the Gospels, but I don't remember that ever being, like, directly said, like, oh yeah, everybody was like, it's his own problem.
Yeah.
It was mostly just they were accusing him falsely of stuff. But it's an interesting viewpoint, I thought. Like, it gave different details of Jesus' death.
I don't know. I think this sets the table. And I think for people hearing this, when, like, if you're reading through the Bible right now and you're like, yeah, I don't know about this Jesus guy, I think this really sets up wow, who is he talking about? Man, I'd love to hear more about this guy that he's talking about. This could have a huge impact. Yeah, like, man, that seems pretty neat. But that's the thing is, I think in this, when he's talking about this, following Isaiah and following what he's talking about, it's like, man, you are setting the table really nicely for what's going to happen. And still, even with this whole thing, we still go ahead and decide that Jesus is going to be crucified and punished, and kind of get a little heads up here on the fact that it's coming. But,
like, this is the ultimate spoiler chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, if you didn't know the story of Jesus yet,
it's like that. Yeah, you know it now.
Pretty much using names. Yeah, you now know it.
If you were gonna see a movie and you, like, looked up the summary of it beforehand before you even saw it, that's what this is. This is chapter 9. Yeah.
But
so
I don't know. This was really cool. After our conversation last week and how exciting this could be, I think this was really awesome to finally get this little glimpse. But I did get our drinking verse. We haven't had a drinking verse in a while, but Isaiah 56, verse 12. Come, each one cries, let me get one, and tomorrow will be like today or even far better. Look at that. So we get our drinking verse of we haven't had one of those in a while, but I know in a lot of the Old Testament we had our drunkards and our drinking verse. So you know what? They threw one in. Yeah.
I did like a verse that was in. I felt like there were more little nuggets this week that I pulled out rather than like. I mean,
Yeah.
the big picture stuff would be Jesus, so there's that. But I mean, like, there are a lot of little sections that I pulled out. So like Isaiah 42:23. Who will hear these lessons from the past and see the ruin that awaits you in the future? And basically what I was reminded of in that is kind of like this contrast of old covenant, new covenant, like, all right, Jesus brought the new covenant. So what is the point of the Old Testament? Which then also references 2 Timothy chapter 3, which says, all scriptures God breathed and useful for teaching. And so this one just kind of like, I felt like it pulled it together where it was like, yeah, the Old Testament is all of these things from the past that are useful for teaching. And because, even as we've gone through this and we've been like, okay, no favoritism, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Also, like, don't maybe marry foreign wives. That didn't work out for Solomon. And, be a good parent. Like there's lots of things in here that are examples where you're like, all right, maybe don't do that. That's a bad idea. So that's kind of what I was reminded of and thinking of was, what is the purpose of the Old Testament? It's that teaching, And I felt like we did learn a lot about it. It's actually kind of funny because my sister actually, who listens to this podcast too, also has brought up favoritism like 5 times in the past week. She's like, yep, you can't do that. We learned not to, favoritism is not good. We learned that in the Bible.
That won't get you anywhere. Nope. Yeah. I love if you look at the headers of a lot of like if I go through the study Bible and look at this, when we're getting near the end, like 63, there's praise and prayer, and then it goes judgment and salvation, and then new heavens and a new earth, judgment and hope, and it closes out. I just love that the way it kind of amps up to that end and really touches on those concepts, going through that to really say, you know what, we can have these praises and this prayer. We can talk about God's judgment and salvation and really what that means. But not only that, but something new that's coming out of it. And there's hope in that. Like, I love the flow of how Isaiah wraps up. Like, that was really exciting for me to kind of, once again, in this Bible plan, when we stay in one book for too long, I kind of get stir crazy. Yeah. But this one did not leave me like that. Like, this one, I think, was a little bit of a slow starter for me. But as we closed it out, it was like, it gave me that new energy. Like, oh, yeah, this is what we're working towards. So let's keep going. So I thought that was a really cool, like, spark that went into it. And I totally, like you said, being not in the book of Isaiah all the time and knowing it enough, but to be kind of surprised by it and be like, wow, I needed that spark, was really good.
Yeah. It was good stuff. I actually really like the book of Isaiah. Yeah. It's one of my favorite books of the prophets.
See, and you were a little down on it. You were a little but you came around.
A week of destruction is a lot. Okay. And, the references were confusing.
But as a whole, it went well.
Yeah, as a whole, it went really well. So, but it was good.
True.
And then, speaking of books that never end, Kings and Chronicles still going strong. Will be for, I think, a month more at least. It's
We are just peppering in there, just that little bit of seasoning on there.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
At this point, it just feels like it's just always going to be there. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah.
because we even like got like the first chapter of Jeremiah too, and you're like, Chronicles is still going. These prophets are happening in the midst of
Yep.
it. I have a next step verse.
Oh man, I love when you put verses with your next steps. That just, you know what? That is really, I want to take this next step. When there's a verse tied to it, I want to take it. So go for it. Hit it.
It puts more weight behind it for sure. Okay.
Sure.
Isaiah 58, 6-7. So technically it's a couple verses. No, this is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free and remove the chains that bind people. Share your food with the hungry and give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them. And do not hide from relatives who need your help. The last part I just mostly thought was funny, but this is God, and He's talking about, right before this, He's talking about, hey, you've been fasting before me, and then you're like, why weren't you listening to me when I was fasting? And God's like, you were doing it for yourselves, like you were doing it so you could look good, so you get forgiveness. Like, why do you think I would be excited about that? And so then God comes back and He clarifies, and He's like, no, this is what I want from you. This is what I would consider a holy sacrifice. And it is helping those who are imprisoned, who are burdened, who are hungry, who are homeless. And so I think for us, when I read this, what I was thinking about was, are there times in your life where you're just like, you're going through the motions, you're showing up at church, you're doing your fasting, you're doing your Sabbath. And on the flip side of that, God's like, okay, that's good, but are you taking care of my people? So I think it's like a check, I guess, is my next step. Check yourself. I feel like that's an Eric saying.
So really, are you loving God? Are you loving others? Because I think somebody said that once, but we're not there yet.
Spoiler alert! Jesus. I think we can talk about him. He was here this whole week, so I think.
Yeah. But no, I think that's really good. Like that next step of really, and I think a lot of people are looking at that right now and saying, with all of the change that's been going on through this COVID-19, everything, like, are we checked out or are we really dialed in, and are we still being active in our faith? And I think that's a huge way to look at it, because I think a lot of people are, man, it's been so convenient or been so easy that I've kind of put it aside and I really haven't been active in it. I might have been personally connecting with God, but am I really looking around me and connecting others with God too? So I think that's the part that, yeah, maybe that next step is a little gut check to see how we're doing in that department, because I know there's been times when I have just rallied the household and said, you know what, we're checked in with each other, but are we really checked in with what's going on around us? So I think that's something that can really work.
Way to bring it in, Eric. Bring it home.
I always try to put a nice little bow on
you. I'm just here to set you up.
Listen, you put out the meat, the real good stuff, and I just wrap it up and put a little bow on it, and then we call it good. That's why we're a team. That's why we're a team.
So what's your next step? What you got?
You know what? I was overcome by water. So you know what? Go to, that's my next step. Get outside, go swimming.
Water.
I figure God is speaking to me through these scriptures and saying, you know what? There's a lot of water being poured out here. So feel free to enjoy the creation that is water. That's my next step.
And hey, if you are thirsty and you never want to thirst again, spoiler alert, Jesus, get you some of that.
He gives he'll meet you at the well. I've heard that story before. He'll meet you there.
That comes up later if you don't get that reference.
I love it.
We'll get there eventually.
Don't worry, you'll get there. You'll laugh at that joke later. Don't worry. It'll
Yeah.
be great.
It'll be great.
Man, awesome. I'm excited. What
Yep.
do you have a preview of what's on tap? Hot water, tap, get it.
Yeah, you were really stuck in that, aren't you?
It just kept coming up.
We are going to be, and I don't want anybody to be surprised by this, still in Chronicles and Kings next week. So that's going to be there. And then those prophets, Jeremiah, Habakkuk. I'm assuming that's how that's pronounced. It is the most enjoyable name to say. Habakkuk. So it's all good stuff. Zephaniah.
And if I remember correctly, these are shorter books too. At least.
Yeah. Like we're looking at like at least 3 different books of the prophets littered throughout next week. So it'll be cool. You know, it's cool to and actually to quote God himself, where God was saying to the people of Israel, I'm telling you this stuff so you can't be like, oh, that's totally coincidence. Like, you're going to know that I told you the future before it happened. So it's kind of cool to look at it from that perspective of, man, this happened. This was talked about before any of this happened. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So a little foreshadowing. God knows what he's doing. I'm telling you. Stick with him. He knows what he's doing.
So thank you for listening to What Now with Anna and Eric. I'm Anna. That's Eric.
Right here.
Yeah. And we're so excited to talk to you again next week. And it will be cool because, you know, Jesus is there always. See ya.
Always. He's always showing up. See ya.